It's Wellness Wednesday. It's Wellness Wednesday, and I'm recording this right after Manly Monday because I said I do trust issues and I didn't want to forget. So yes, we are talking about trust issues. Now, trust issues is not just about getting a spidey sense at a particular person or recognizing that there's certain things you can trust someone with and others you can't trust that particular individual with. No, trust issues are a pervasive, kind of global, consistently questioning other people's motives and intentions, even without evidence, a fear of vulnerability, an excessive need for control, emotional distance, overanalyzing, and jealousy. And people with trust issues have valid reasons for trust issues. Now, trust issues can be a symptom of an underlying condition, like borderline personality disorder, like PTSD, or people can have trust issues or trust issues in certain areas of their life without those diagnoses. If you think you might have something serious going on, please get treatment, get a diagnosis, find out the specifics of the subtype of these conditions that you have, because that will determine the correct treatment for you. Instead of floundering around in the dark, relying on YouTube videos like this, because everybody is an individual. Everybody has different, combinations of habit changes in the present, plus, working backward with the unresolved issues. Everyone deserves personal attention, and getting a diagnosis, finding out, the specifics of what's going on and what's going to help, that's invaluable. So we're going to talk about the subclinical element of trust issues, not, because that's too big. Right, so that's what we're going to talk about here. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Now, real talk. Like and subscribe to this channel if you like this content. Real talk. Trust issues make you untrustworthy. I had a conversation with someone last week before, where I sort of laid it on the line and said, look, I deserve better than the way you're thinking the worst of me and in this situation. And I think I've earned more trust than this. And the response I got, it was an inherent contradiction, and I know the person didn't recognize it, but it stuck with me because they said, I do trust you. I just don't trust anybody. Like I said, that's a contradiction. That means they don't trust me. And I'm not okay with that, because I'm not okay with being accused of nefarious intentions that I don't have. And that person's work is to watch that. The feelings are valid. The fear is valid, but you don't have the right to just flat out accuse people of shit they didn't do, especially when it's motivations they have. Because the minute you falsely accuse someone of a nefarious motivation, they're like, I didn't think that. You guys are all gamers. You know that you read a thing about this is why gamers are so bad. You're like, no, that's not me. Fuck you, right? Like, it's rationally, we recognize it's not a good thing to do, but people do it all the time because of trust issues. And again, I'm going to repeat this a lot. Severe trust issues make you untrustworthy because you're constantly holding people at arm's length, which means you're not going to have their back when it really matters. Because part of having their back is not succumbing to paranoia and recognizing, no, based on that particular person's behavior, this is not in their character. This thing I'm imagining they're doing against me, right? It's not fair to other people and what you're doing when you do that. In practical terms, again, real talk is punishing the person in the present for hurts that another person did to you in the past. And the constant loyalty testing, the constant testing of, will this person take this beating and come back for more? The thinking is, oh, this is how I learned to trust this person. The problem is it doesn't really work that way. Because why would anybody just take beating after beating and false accusation after false accusation and keep coming back for more if they're regulated and have a healthy sense of self-esteem and aren't looking to use you? The only people who get through that filter are people that either have massive issues of their own and therefore will behave unpredictably, or, people who don't have your best interests at heart, who just either like the drama or some other unhealthy reason for sticking around through all the bullshit you put them through. And I mean, when you think about, would you like to be on the receiving end? And people go, well, no, but that's what I have to do. Well, not really. If somebody treats you like crap and you go back for more, that's a choice. And the problem is that, I talked about ostracism on Monday. People isolate, get lonely, but because of these constant tests they put on other people, the people who would be healthy for them go, screw this. And so all that they're left with is a series of unhealthy relationships and codependencies, and which furthers the lack of trust. Because those people are treating them badly. And you see the cycle, and when you're observing it from outside, that person who said, I trust you, but I can't trust anybody. They did a series of people screw them over. And part of the problem was it wasn't learning from it. Because when you trust no one and somebody screws you over, you go, of course, that's why I can't trust people. So who's the only ones that stick around? The people who are not trustworthy. You see the cycle. And this is what therapists don't do, right? They treat trust issues as disordered thinking instead of the reasons for the trust issues being completely valid. And this is why CBT can backfire in certain cases of PTSD, because it invalidates the core reason for the lack of trust, because it's disordered thinking. No, it's not. That shitty thing that happened to you actually happened to you, probably again and again and again and again. I found it much more beneficial to sort of look at it and go, okay, if my current behavior is most likely to attract untrustworthy people, I'm feeding that beast. I don't want to do that. Therefore, I'm going to stop. And you can trust people with certain things, but not with others. You can also totally pivot your thinking so that it's not about trusting other people. It's trusting yourself and your own behavior and being able to stand by it. For instance, anything you put on the internet, be prepared that it's going to come out. And, come out of context. And, sometimes people will even completely make up scenarios that recontextualize what you said. Sometimes people will put it out of order. And then when you point out it was out of order, they're like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the meaning at all. Of course it does. Right? Of course it does. And the reality is sometimes people are going to screw you. And you can focus on those people and spend your entire life trying to defend against that. Or you can develop really solid relationships with people, so when someone screws you over, it's not as damaging because you've got other people who you've built a reputation with who can vouch for you. And again, like I said on Monday, the hardest part is right at the beginning of this, right? You have to be prepared to be seen, warts and all, flaws and all, ugly parts and all. Every time somebody goes after my looks or my age or anything like that. It's pretty clear. I am learning all of the things they hate about themselves, because if they didn't hate it about themselves, why would any of that be an insult to someone? You know, like when you go there, you're telling on yourself, because that kind of shit, it doesn't go through my mind. I never understood it. It's easy. You know, I'm kind of amazed at how many of the US late night or like political commentary shows, or like, you know, John Oliver, all that stuff, they go after people's appearance because they think their politics suck. And to me, that just feels like a very insecure joke, right? Because why does this matter? If somebody has a shitty policy, you know, what's her name? Kristi Noem, pretty attractive, right? Does that make her policies any less shitty? No. Right? They're shitty policies. It's cruel. You know, for all that bleaching Pam Bondi does with her hair, does that make her a better lawyer? No. So why are we focusing on this shit? It's just giving people the tools to delude us further. Because if we're blinded by a pretty girl or a handsome guy, people are going to get past our defenses even more, right? If we prioritize that and we think that having people like that around us increases our status, well, that's very transactional, and you're encouraging people to use you when you do that stuff. Living authentically is difficult because it does open you up to rejection and a lot of criticism, but it also allows you to be accepted. And you may not believe it now, but the people that understand and accept you are way more valuable. You know, 3 people that understand and accept you matter way more than 50 assholes who think you're the devil. And I mean, you can add a couple zeros onto the people who think I'm the devil. Literally the devil, you know, Zoe Quinn called me that and never apologized for it, even though it's gingerphobic as fuck. So, and there's an example of flung an insult, showed me who she was. I don't give a shit about her opinion going forward, because that was cheap and low and unnecessary because she doesn't like something I'm doing. To go that raw, to go that base, says more about her own self-loathing at the time than anything about me. And that is the problem when you're constantly negotiating from a place of fear. If you're constantly got to get them before they get me because of your trust issues, you keep stepping on that rake, right? You keep showing your hand as a glimpse into your own misery. And people who are more stable and more accepting of themselves see right through that and go, oh, okay, that person's calling me ugly because they're insecure about their own looks. Some people are calling me old because they're insecure with getting older, because I know some of these people are only a few years younger than me. So, you know, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to focus on people's conduct, and I'm going to focus on people's effort. And I have never understood why someone's opinion and the right to express it and the right to be heard is conditional upon looks. That's just the dumbest bullshit on the planet to me. And I'll die on that hill. Because, hey, I worked with a lot of intellectuals. I worked with a lot of, really, really brilliant coders. They're not in the gym, 4 hours a day because they're coding. Fucking spare me. You can't add hours to the clock. It's stupid. And so people do drugs and they become increasingly emotionally unstable. And, they think because a certain amount of ketamine was prescribed by their doctor that that's all they have to do. They don't have to do any of the talk therapy that the ketamine is supposed to encourage. And then they're doing it recreationally. And then they're taking a lot more than they were prescribed. But, oh, no, they don't have a problem. Right? Welcome to half of fucking Silicon Valley right now. The fucking Bay Area. Everybody's doing medicinal weed or microdosing shrooms or ketamine or something that's a shortcut to just stop, learn to fucking like yourself, stop being an asshole. Not necessarily in that order, right? Like, holy crap. And the more I looked at my own trust issues, the more I realized that it was ego, you know? It was wanting other people to prove to me that I was worth something instead of doing the work myself. The problem is that doesn't work. No matter how many other people validate and affirm you, if you don't believe it, it won't stick. Doing that core work. Because, let's face it, at the core of trust issues tends to be, I know it was for me, core of trust issues is believing on some level you deserve to be mistreated. You know, the nasty grams that Stalker Chan talked to me about karma all the time. Well, I ain't fucking Buddhist, so, but, oh yes, this thing that was wronged in a past life, that's all the terrible. I deserve. No, I don't. And the fact that she keeps going there indicates that, you know, she's got a sense that she's cursed or doomed, and I used to feel that way. I don't anymore because I worked on it. I actually this is going to sound weird. I had to truly believe that I was a person. That may sound strange, kind of obvious, but I didn't feel like a person as a kid. There was a lot of things, not least of which being in the gifted program and constantly referred to as different or unusual or weird, that got this idea of, oh, that's for people, that's not for you. Right? Being segregated off in a bunch of different things was not great in hindsight. You know, when the only thing that matters in you is your intellect, is your grades, and all your emotional development and the ability to be a kid is sacrificed to pump more and more and more facts into your brain. It's not good for you. It isn't. It really makes you feel more like a human encyclopedia, something I got called a lot when encyclopedias existed. You know, you become this information station instead of a human being. And that fucks with your self-image really badly. And then, you know, having one parent who expected me to be basically a show pony, you know, an extension of how great he is because he had this exceptional kid. And then having, you know, another parent who was super embarrassed of me because I was weird and not a normal girl. And that screws with you. You know, then my stepdad came along and, you know, rest his soul, he appreciated me. And that meant a lot. You know, it's all of a sudden someone wasn't trying to change me or constantly improve me. It's, here's this book you've never heard of, but I think you're going to like. One of them was Wilkie Collins's The Woman in White. Yes, I did enjoy that book. That is probably not something that would have been recommended to most people my age at the time. I was in my teens at some point, but you know, that meant that was at the time, it didn't make me feel like I mattered, but in retrospect, it did, you know, and that's the funny thing. That's how early life experiences work. But I had to accept I am human with all the limitations and all the rights. that come with that and all the responsibilities that come with that. And you do not get any of those one things without accepting all three. So yes, human limitations, human rights, and human responsibilities. And you gotta do all of them. And once you get that, and this is a step that a lot of therapy skips, then you can get into self-esteem. You must have a self-concept before you have any sense of self-worth. And the idea of you matter just because you're a human takes a bit, especially when you don't feel like a human, right? And if people have treated you like you're subhuman, and if you had a childhood illness, if you spent a lot of time in hospitals, those are really dehumanizing places. Or say as, somebody who spent time in those, because I had a lot of I was allergic to the fucking chicken pox. How the fuck does that happen? Like horror movie hives when I was 12. Like entire raised patches of skin. Because I'm allergic to the fucking chickenpox virus. So now I'm prone to shingles for the rest of my goddamn life. Other weird things. Apparently, severe chickenpox can put you at risk of autoimmune disease. I got that too, right? And so accepting this reality of being human, that we all have vulnerabilities that way, that's part of it. And then recognizing, well, because that's part of being human, that doesn't take away the rights you get as a person. That affirms them. And if you're going to take all the shit that comes with being human, then take the benefits too. You deserve certain basics because everybody does. And the first place to start there is not convincing yourself of it, treating other people like they deserve the basics of human dignity because there are people. Even if they're terrible people, you don't have to play their dehumanization game, And that's why I know that every single person that does the appearance-based insults, that does the nastiness, that karma, you deserve this. They're not happy people. They're telling on themselves. Their lives are misery. And they're trying to escape it for a few seconds by flinging it at me. And it's been years now. And they've gotten worse because they're spiraling. They are announcing to everybody that they do not have their shit together. Because they can't treat human beings that they don't like as human beings. That's the game right there. You start with other people, right? Are you someone who is trustworthy? Don't worry about other people. Are you trustworthy? That doesn't mean you'll never make a mistake. That doesn't mean there's never going to be misunderstandings. Of course they are. Conversations are more art than science. But are your intentions good? Do you try? Do you make adjustments and improvements and don't make excuses for things? Are the reasons you give for why you made a mistake the beginning to avoid the mistake in future, or is it an attempt to be left off the hook? You can answer these questions for yourself. And it is amazing how much easier it is to trust others when you are not constantly scheming and stalking and compiling dossiers, and when you're not doing the untrustworthy bullshit, it's easier to trust other people because you realize, yeah, life's better when you don't do that stuff, when you're not constantly trying to outrun, outplay, manipulate, and I'm working on an It's Not Therapy about manipulation because it's so normalized now. And I really think that's why there's so much anxiety out there. Because manipulation is normalized. But I don't do it. And if I catch myself doing something because I am slipping, it's like, no, we're going to cut that out now. Thanks. Yeah, not good for me. And when you check your own behavior because you are worth it and you don't want to tell on yourself, all of a sudden the paradigm of trusting other people changes. When you are trustworthy, when you have those expectations of yourself that are inviolate, when you have your own standards that you know make you better and stronger and more confident, it's much easier to apply that to other people. When you are doing shady shit because you think that's the world, it eats you from the inside. And when you are, it is impossible to block every attack. It is impossible to avoid every betrayal. But, I mean, look at Jimmy Kimmel. He built up enough goodwill, and what happened to him was just so ridiculously wrong that, yeah, something unfair happened to him, but people had his back. That's what happens when you are trustworthy, even though other people aren't. And I'm talking as someone who, just under a year ago, people got caught lying and pulling shit, and they tried to make it out that somehow I deserved it because I was a bitch. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. That's just a permission structure for lying. It doesn't matter how shitty the other person is. Your behavior reflects on you. And it's sort of horrifying to think about that this was this person that, you see people have flaws. People are a little full of shit, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. And then you realize how many excuses they made for lying. It's chilling. It really is. It's chilling. People can convince themselves that anything is okay if they believe that anything is okay because someone made them. And no one makes you. No one makes you. You choose. You have choices. A lot of the times they're all shitty choices. But doing nothing is also a choice. And often doing nothing is probably a better choice than you give it credit for. And in terms of trust, you can let people a bit of the way in and see how they do and not let them all of the way in. But really, I found at the core of trust issues was my own shame. And I've really worked on that, and thank God. Because if people can weaponize private conversations to get you to feel shame, they're gonna. If you're like, yeah, I said that, doesn't say what you claim. I know what I was thinking in that moment, and it's not what you're making it out to be. What you're claiming is not there. It's not, they can't weaponize it in the same way. And, people who are objective look at it and go, this isn't what they're making it out to be. They could have stopped. They could have walked away from the conversation. They could have just gone your separate ways and not tried to blow the person up. Or they could have taken responsibility for what they did. They chose neither of those things. When people do that stuff, you see who has your back and who doesn't. And that's invaluable information. And that's the other thing. It's how you frame betrayals that affects your ability to trust going forward. If you're blaming yourself, and everybody makes mistakes. Everybody does, But mistakes are not reasons for betrayal. If someone didn't come to you first and just blasted you on the internet, unless you were prepared to do it to them too, and they just, outmaneuvered you, you didn't deserve that, right? Making mistakes, it doesn't mean you deserve humiliation. And working on, yes, I made a mistake. I didn't deserve this. I don't deserve shame You can be embarrassed that you made a mistake. God knows I am. But embarrassment's not the same as shame. It's like, gee, I feel silly, as opposed to I'm worthless. No wonder nobody, none of that shit. Very different things, Embarrassment is, yeah, okay, I'm going to remember not to do that again because, oops. And then you laugh it off. Shame rots you from the inside. And so I truly believe that at the core of trust issues, not trusting a particular person because they've earned it, but like global everybody trust issues, when you can trust no one, I really believe that at the core of that is your own shame. And if you work on that, it starts being a lot easier to know who you can trust with what. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone to use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. If something in this video speaks to you, sign up for a Leanna Care session yourself to get personalized attention for way less money than therapy. Or like and subscribe to this channel if you don't have the money and you want to help me out. Either way, thanks for watching and be well.